So, hello everybody and welcome to our next general developer meeting. We have here tonight we have guys from Perth. We have some other HQ guys connected from their home offices. There is a lot of things, small things and also big things happening recently in Moodle world. Today we would like to go through some of them. So let's have a look at how the actual agenda for today meeting looks like. I'll just share my screen. I would like to ask you to join the chat if you are allowed to, or use the DevPad page that we have for keeping shared meeting notes for today, and also for eventually raising questions. Please feel free to join that page. All the links are at today's meeting page. We will start with a short summary of the recent MoodleMoots and Hackfest that are happening there, and we will then continue with other items in our agenda. So with these moods, I will take my word first, and there we go. Basically, you probably know that during the MoodleMoots, which is basically a Moodle conference is happening all around the world. Just recently, we started to do a pretty new format of these Hackfests and MoodleMoots. Moodle Hackfests are basically one-day events or sessions that are part of these MoodleMoots conferences, where Moodle developers and community members join together for the whole day to do some interesting stuff. Just recently, it looked in these moods that were happening that was sort of mix of various sessions and events, including introduction to Moodle development procedures, like how to contribute patches, how to maintain a plugin, and all these things. It was also an opportunity to learn about new APIs, development patterns, various tools that are used during the development, like Behat, PHP Unit, and all these things. These Hackfests also appear to be a great place for very general and open show and talk sessions on various aspects and topics. People are free coming to discuss their ideas on how things could be implemented, ideas for new plugins, for new patches, approaches, and these things. And again, the Hackfest, imagine a group of or room full of Moodle developers can share their ideas, give a quick feedback on them and these things. Also, as a part of these Hackfests, there is a dedicated session where outputs from so-called working groups are being discussed. The general idea behind this framework or scheme is that, again, during the MoodleMoot, during the conference, there is a dedicated session called working group sessions, where experienced Moodle users meet together to discuss and share their experience with dedicated various topics. They share their experience, they raise their requirements, what could work for them and everything. And at the end of these working groups, there is sort of feature request or description of features that would be nice to have in Moodle that are then passed to developers who, during the Hackfest, discuss the topic from the development and implementation point of view, like trying to come up how the thing would be best to be implemented, what eventual problems could be there and everything. They can again ask the guys from the working group for feedback, questions, and everything. And from this communication and cooperation of these two group of people, users and developers, as an output, there should be some sort of specification or basically the plan how the thing can be implemented, which is then converted into tracker issues, and the work can be done on it. Just recently, during some recent moods as an examples of topics that were discussed like this with this new scheme was this simplification of forms UI, how forms could be simplified to make them more usable. There was a big topic on student dashboard, basically a homepage for student, what they should see there, how it should be displayed and everything. We had a group on assessment analytics. We had a group on course archiving and rollover and things like this. So this is roughly the plan that will be how these working groups and Hackfest should cooperate on producing some output. I would now like ask Michael Derad, who was involved in leading or co-chairing of one of these working groups, to show us how these outputs and reports can look like and what was it about. Michael?
Thanks, thanks, David. I guess just some initial sort of notes to say that the working group idea came about because a lot of people are jealous of what developers can achieve in Moodle. They want to be involved. They want to contribute to how Moodle is developed, but often they feel a bit excluded. We do include them in things like the tracker, and we do, you know, keep them involved, but they still feel that they want to have that sort of input. So we've actually been criticized a bit in the past for being a bit too developer-centric. But in saying that, whether or not it's true, the working groups were an idea to sort of give some power that developers might have, you know, and put it in the hands of regular users. Some of what is being done at the MoodleMoots for the working groups, and David listed a few of the 4 topics that we've had in the last 2 MoodleMoots in Australia and in Ireland, tends to be very much focused on what users want. So we try and get them to avoid the technical questions in the working groups, and allow the developers at the Hackfest to then have consider, you know, how things like that could be implemented. We're still trying to fine-tune all that because it's not easy to do, but yeah, I'll just try and bring up the working group document as an example from Moot AU. So I've been involved in some of the working groups, but obviously I can't be in every sort of one. So I'll just share this now. Okay. So this is a Google Doc that was produced. So the group went through, this was in relation to feedback analytics. In other words, looking at the information we have about whether or not students are looking at the feedback they receive, particularly from the assignment module. I guess the analogy there is that if you had a pile of paper-based assignments and they'd been marked with red pen or whatever, and then you ask the students to come and collect it, normally quite often you'd end up with a few, you know, uncollected, quite a few. In Moodle, we don't even have a sense of whether there is feedback being collected or not. So this working group was looking at that. And I mean, there was some mock-ups created by hacking some screenshots, and so on. And in this document, you can see there's different colors. There's a bit of back and forth that's been going on between the working group members and the Hackfest people. So there was initially some ideas that were generated. They went to the working group. The working group sort of passed that on to the Hackfest. The Hackfest people sort of had a look at that and sort of thought, well, what are the technical limitations here, and what are things that you might not have considered, how could we implement this, and so on. And then they passed some questions back to the working group, and so, you know, it's been a good bit of communication back and forth there. So I guess the idea there is that we are involving people. They are generating ideas. They're looking at systems and seeing how can we improve things, and then developers are following on from that and having an opportunity to have an input, and then that's going to result in issues being generated. Some of the earlier ones from Ireland already have issues generated, and then hopefully those issues can find themselves into regular sprints at Moodle HQ, as well as being contributed to by external developers also. That's probably enough from me.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Michael, for the info. Just so roughly, if now I am a normal Moodle user, or somehow who would just like to contribute somehow, what would be the best thing to do to get involved in these ongoing projects on working groups? I guess
so I mean, initially they're focusing on MoodleMoots. So I mean, it's easier to have a solid conversation about these ideas when people are meeting face to face, and there's a lot that gets done in a single day in those cases. But if people are interested in wanting to find out about the results of the working groups, they're welcome to go to the MoodleMoot websites and find the courses that are related. They're usually pretty open. The Australian MoodleMoot one in particular was pretty open. People can enroll themselves freely whether they've come to the MoodleMoot or not, and then they can see the documents that were used there.
Yeah, thanks. So it's great to see that these working groups are not just closed to those who attended the Moodle. They are still open for newcomers to join and participate. Excellent. Yeah. Can I ask now Andrew Nichols from Perth to mention, or he was involved in another working group's topics there. Andrew, over to you.
Okay. Yeah. You probably have one to say on that, Martin.
Just had a few bits of notes I'd written out.
Sure. Sorry, we're just changing presenters here at like 3 seconds ago. Let me just share that.
Oh, you can show them.
Have you got the document?
Yeah, I just don't.
Okay. I was just changing. We actually had a problem with there was two of this document because there was two facilities. So I had one, and Jason started a new one. So I was just editing his. So this was about course rollover and archiving, which is a bunch of features that most admins need in Moodle, and what they end up doing. And probably a lot of you watching this have implemented things. What they're doing is making their own scripts and hacks for doing this, and every institution has different needs. So it's about the process right at the end course where you need to save what happened somehow and close off acts from current students. And it's also about what happens at the beginning of the course where you need to restore old stuff or reset things or a lot of people into courses. And Moodle has little tools for that, but not really a way to handle, say, 90,000 courses changing every 6 months. That there's no way. So people write script, people do all sorts of things. So we were trying to talk about toolboxes. We were trying to think of in terms of a toolbox. What kind of tools would admins find useful to do kind of thing? And in summary, we came up with 8 suggestions, and these were from all the people in that particular work group. And some of it mirrors already as it's in the tracker, and of it was new, and it was only really from a user point of view. So the first thing was bulk operations. So probably you can imagine this on the course category page. It was really easy to select a bunch of courses and then do these things. This is what they're in order. So copying.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Martin.
Yeah.
We are getting quite a big, sort of echo or bit of difficulty to hear you. Is there any other microphone in the room that can be switched off eventually?
I'm not on here. No, I shouldn't be on here.
It is possible to hear it, just quite difficult to sort of.
Oh yeah, thanks. No, I don't think of any other microphones on. But what I'll do, I'll turn down the volume here.
But let's see. Some guys suggested to actually restart the Hangout in your room. Not sure if it could
Okay.
help.
Reconnecting out.
Let's
Are
go
you
on
having
and let's
any
see how
echo?
it goes.
So when I'm saying things, you're hearing of what I'm saying. That's weird. Is it still happening?
Could be better now.
Yeah, it's a bit better. Okay, it shouldn't be because everyone's muted except for us. So I'll keep going.
Can you mute the volume? And then
Yeah. Go on. Damn it.
That's fine. Okay.
All right. So anyway, there was a bunch of bulk operations that everyone said they would. Bulk backups, bulk visibility, things on and off, bulk moving, etc., and you can look at all the details here. But one of the really new ideas was this idea of a freeze. So some way to just make a whole course read-only. And I must say that's not something I ever really thought about myself, but everyone there was really, yes, that's what we need. We need to keep the courses in the Moodle site, but just freeze it, so lock it. And so, in fact, when we talked about it, it turned out that people wanted to freeze.
Yeah, I thought just mention because discuss this further at the developer day.
Yeah. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But basically, people wanted was to freeze everything. So be able to freeze an activity, to freeze a course, to freeze a whole category on every context. Something else was new course welcome wizard when you first come in. So it says to users, you can restore the course, you can import from somewhere else. Because a lot of universities were doing that. They were leaving it to each individual teacher to make that decision, but they couldn't communicate properly that they could do that. So they would have preferred an empty course that was a dialogue saying, do you want to restore this from the previous version of it from last year, right now? That kind of stuff. So what was separate was freezing final grades, and that's separate to freezing the course, because sometimes you may want to freeze the grades even though Moodle itself will be upgraded in the future. A lot of people keep their previous year's Moodle courses on the same site as the current Moodle courses, and so Moodle is always being upgraded, but grades in the past should never change, for example. They wanted consistency, so currently reset, import, back, it's all slightly different options, so those interfaces all need some harmonizing. Relative date, I think that's been one of the earliest tracker requests, just to be able to see this quiz happens 4 weeks after the beginning of the course, or 4 weeks after the user has been enrolled.
Apparently the audio quality is still really bad.
Perhaps
we should restart the Hangout.
All right, we'll restart. Yeah, let's reconnect.
Okay, so we asked the guys in Perth to disconnect and reconnect to the meeting to see if the sound would be better now. As you can see, technology is always against us, but we will eventually sort it out.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes.
All right, any better?
So far better. Let's see.
Okay, got a thumbs up there.
Sharing again.
Yep.
That one's now. Cool.
Anyway, and there's more details too. I'm not going to go into it all, but so that went through to the Hackfest on the last day. And do you want to talk about
sure.
that?
We really only discussed 2 of the points that from the working group. One of them was the implementation of the course freezing. The general idea, as Martin said earlier, was to freeze at the context level. So some things to be aware of as developers for maybe third-party plugins and that kind of thing. We'll be looking to do this at the context level by adding a new field to the context table. So if there's anywhere that you're doing anything to do with fetching your own contexts, or pre-filling the context table, or doing something unexpected, then you might want to just double check how you're doing that and that you're using our APIs for that. And also, because we're going to be doing that, the idea is that we're going to modify its capability. So for any write capability, we will just return false. So now would probably be a good time to check that your capabilities are correct and that your write capabilities are write capabilities and your read capabilities are read capabilities. Because otherwise things may break when we're implementing this. The other thing that we discussed was the relative date. It's number 6 on there. There was a lot of discussion about this. No real progress on exactly how this could be done. General consensus was that we need to probably add a new kind of field type, which would be also with a new database type potentially, and it might be that can't solve it fully because some people want to be able to do things relative to course start date, and that's relatively easy. We can do that because that doesn't change. The problem comes because some people want to do things relative to the user enrollment start date, and that gets very difficult because if you have different users, different start dates, or different enrollment dates, then we can no longer sort of the things we're doing with SQL queries, which check the start times, that kind of thing. So that's a whole different thing. And the other thing that came out of that was probably we would need to track all of those data that we have. At the moment, plugins can introduce their own fields, and they don't need to say the date field. The only place you currently do that is in the backup and restore code, potentially, where you say that a date offset should be applied. But we have no way of applying those offsets because we don't know where those date fields are. So another part of that work would be that we would need to start asking different plugins, where are your date fields and how do they affect users, essentially.
So what was interesting about that is that what the users were saying, well, generally why they would want this in case of by enrollment date, is they have rolling courses. They often have cohorts of groups of people moving through, a month or something, and that could be avoided if you had separate courses for each of those, but somehow had the ability to share activity. So when you update the master activity, all those clones of that course would update well, and so that might be a way of you wouldn't need the dates to be so much. So it's quite interesting.
So one of the things which came out of that working group was that the people who were doing those rolling courses essentially said that they probably would having to look at that system instead, and they would prefer to look at changing things and reducing the complexity.
Yeah, they were abusing it basically too much. So anyway, it was quite valuable. It was quite interesting, I think. And yeah, we got a lot of really good ideas. Now we just have to do them. So back to you, David.
As usually, as I noted, there was one or two important things that could affect plugins and Moodle contributors already right now, which is basically just to make sure that the way how they use capabilities and their write and read flag in the declaration, they should make sure that it is used correctly. So in the future, when the capability is frozen at certain context, they work as expected. Was I right?
Yeah, exactly. It's there are some capabilities that are a little bit abused. So maybe one capability is reused in slightly different ways, and there will be cases where it won't quite work. But it's okay. I think it's as long as it's generally working, it suits most people's purposes. They basically want to allow students to go in and look at their previous work, but just not keep adding to it and touching it and changing the old courses. That's all.
Yeah, great. It was, if I remember, it was also mentioned in the Hackfest that a good thing about this feature actually will be that quite maybe some hidden bugs in accessibility capability evaluation and ethics could be eventually revealed, so they can be fixed in the future as well. So one more benefit for it. Okay, thank you very much, guys. As again, it will be great if anybody interested will join these courses and pages that we have set up for these topics. So these are new areas where community can become part of the Moodle development for the future and join us. Great. Let's see what's next on our agenda. I will check our channels for questions and feedback eventually, but I guess there is nothing particular right now, as these topics are quite wide in the range. So it's better to go through all the docs before raising the question probably. Okay. One related topic on this, as Martin already mentioned, is that we eventually end up with nice specifications to be worked on, and now it's only how to make them implemented. And there is also there is an idea of how this whole Moodle development could be funded eventually to make these nice specs actually happen. I would like to ask Martin again to tell us something about the new plan for the Moodle Association and the ideas behind.
Yeah, so some of you may have already heard about the association, but I'll give you a bit of a summary about it. I'll just share some slides here. So our goals here are many, but some of the main ones are to have more major new developments, move faster. A lot of our time, probably 90% of our time, is fixing bugs, fixing security things, updating Moodle to work in a new environment that's around it, and doing all the community stuff and all the things that we do. So to do more developments, we need more people, more core developers, people who are working on core, who are up to date with all the many things that they need to know to write core code, and that can take a few months to learn, or a few years. And the other thing we need to be efficient and move fast, we need better feedback from users, more organized feedback. We need it to be prioritized for us. It's quite difficult, and Marina will attest, to look at the thousands of ideas that are floating around and to turn that into a clear roadmap for where Moodle should go. So we want driven core specifications, and we also want investment from users. We want people to stand behind those requests and say, not only do we want this, but here's the money for it to pay these core developers. And so we've come up with this idea of the Moodle Association, and the idea, I've been talking about it for a couple of months. It's been quite well received around the place, and a lot of people are really looking forward to it. So I'll just quickly describe what it is and how it's going to work. So it's a non-profit organisation owned by Moodle users. It's Moodle HQ. Even though we're set up, we're going to hand it over, and it'll be at arm's length from us. It will collect annual fees for membership, members, like most associations do. All those fees go into a development fund. The members decide what their core development priorities are, so they set their map basically. Then they pay Moodle HQ to develop those projects in core, and it works a bit like this. So you have all these members in there, and members, when I say members, I mostly mean institutions of different kinds. There'll be universities, colleges, companies, anyone using Moodle with an interest in Moodle's roadmap. They will take part in 6-month cycles. Roughly, there's a 4-month specification period where people are working on specifications and developing. So anybody can lead a project. Someone says, I want to lead a particular project, and then they're responsible for it. And there's discussions about it online, and there's groups at Moods. So this is where it really ties in with the working groups. In the future, some of those working groups acting at the Moods will be run by the association, and some of the working groups at Moots may eventually turn into these project association. I understand the sound is quite bad right now. I'm sorry. We'll reboot, I guess, after this. Most of it's on the slides, so you can watch that. Then there's a 1-month quoting period, so we'll be looking at projects and giving people quotes, and that's so people can understand how large they are, whether they're small or large projects. And then there's a voting period, and depending on how high your membership is, you get voting points, which you distribute across projects you want. And at the end, we have a list of projects that highly voted. The committee running the association, they allocate funds to projects, and they contract Moodle HQ to develop them, and we get them done and into the next release as soon as possible. And what's good about it, we have a known stream of not only ideas but funding for coming in from the association, so we can build up our developer base in advance and have as many developers as we need for the future, and that means things are very manageable. So the memberships look about like this. There's from $100, probably individual teacher or person who's interested can join for that, up to $10,000, which will most likely be universities and those kinds of organisations. If you are a university at that level, you're allowed to have more than one person in the forums. So you know, the larger you are, the more people you can actually have involved. And we're currently building up the first committee, and we're going through the registration process. So this should all be launched and running in a couple of months, we think. And we're working on it. And so if you look at the overall picture of how it works in Moodle, something like this, we have the user community contributing in 3 sort of main ways. One, they might use a Moodle partner, and their 10% of their payments come to Moodle HQ, their royalties. Secondly, they might be part of the Moodle Association and seeing on the funding of the projects that way, which will come to Moodle HQ. And thirdly, there'll be, well, as always, funding community developers who work on patches for or Moodle plugins, just as now. So really, this is the new. It's just this association in the middle, and I think that will help the whole Moodle roadmap move faster, and we'll get a lot more done. And all those features we all want to actually happen. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really cool thing to do in the future. That's it. Back.
Thanks for the info, Martin. It sounds really good, like a plan to actually not only to raise funding for the Moodle development, but most importantly, how to determine actually what should be developed. That is what the voice of the community would be clear through this association. Then, okay, I'm just checking if there are some questions. We are still experiencing this technical difficulties with the sound. Hopefully you were able to catch most of the information. We are going to ask guys in Perth to reboot their machine to see if it works. We try to turn it off and on again as usually. Let's see how if there are some other questions related to this association, and we could return back a bit. Meanwhile, I would like to ask Jetta from HQ and to show us or to present some of his recent work that was done as part of this HQ project. Jetta, over to you.
Yes, actually, I've got a little bit of trouble over here. Would Adrian or Simi mind going first? Oh wait, they're rebooting. Oh, I suppose I could go. Anyway, I've just relocated to Japan, continuing to work for HQ, and I actually have been quite busy during Project Week. I actually started coding this on the plane. what it does in brief is it's an Atto plugin that gives you the ability to add Ruby, which is a standard way to provide phonetic markup, like saying here's a word and here's its pronunciation. That's used quite a lot in East Asian countries, so China, Japan, and Korea. And it's functionality that's in Word, and people expect it to be in your word processors. So I figured, why not put it in Atto? And it turned out to be pretty simple. And I would demo it for you right now, but maybe we can come back to that later. But I am waiting on an issue to land. It's a purified HTML issue, but it should be up on the plugins DB, I think, within the week. I'm very excited to do it, and I know our users here in Japan would be very excited as well. In addition, I've been working on adding Ruby that same technology, that Ruby phonetic markup, to the display of usernames within Moodle. So that's actual names, not their usernames. This is simply because I don't know if anyone's particularly familiar with Japan and Japanese culture, but Japan uses Chinese characters for names, and these Chinese characters, they can have multiple readings, and a lot of the time when you see like the name of the building or the name or like you see someone's name written like in an article or something, you don't actually know how to say it unless you're a Japanese native, and even if you are a Japanese native, if you're say like a middle schooler or something, if you're one of these students that our project is helping to educate, you're not necessarily going to have that knowledge right away. So wouldn't it be great if we could annotate, users as they show up in Moodle with the phonetic pronunciations of their names? And this Ruby technology exists to do just that. It's a nice standard way of doing it. It leverages the really great work that my colleague Adrian Grieve has done on, and some others I think, on alternate name fields. So it leverages those existing fields. All it is a checkbox that you check in the administration panel, and then it will just automatically, wherever you get a bit technical here, but in a full name string, so let's say first name, last name, if you have phonetic information for first name, it will now appear on the top, like smaller, so you can read it above first name, and the same thing for last name. And that's been a really big thing. I showed it to Don Hinkleman of the Moodle Association of Japan at a dinner that was put on for us during the Australian Moot before I came to Japan, and he was blown away. He's very excited to see it in there. There are some wrinkles before it will land, but mostly relating to me having to explain what exactly I'm doing. But I don't anticipate it taking very long to make it in. I would demonstrate, but I'm not actually set up to demonstrate it just yet. But that's my project.
Thanks. Sounds like a good and very interesting project indeed. Very nice to see that you are now more involved in the overall, culture and issues that Moodle users from these parts of the world are facing, and it's great to see development on this area happening. So we will look forward to further development in this area. Let's look at what else was born during the last project week in HQ. I would like to ask Ankit for a short report.
Yeah.
Hi.
Let me just share the screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, cool. So during the last Melbourne Moot, there was an idea proposed by Scott that Moodle should be integrated with IFT. If you don't know about IFT, it's a website, if this, then that kind of thing. So you can have things like, as you can see, add your Instagram photos to a buffer queue. So if something happens, then do something else. So the idea was to integrate Moodle, and there are two different things, action and triggers. So triggers are the if part. So if something happens, that is what we call triggers, and the action part is what actually we want to do if that particular trigger happens. So at the moment, I have started working on a plugin which will integrate Moodle with this. So you can just install that plugin on your Moodle site, and then you can connect your Moodle site with IFT, and you can have triggers. I'm not considering actions at this point of time because they are a bit more complicated. Triggers are very easy because we already have lots of events in Moodle. So we have to just channel those events to the IFT side. And I had a talk with the IFT developer team, and they have given me access to their APIs, which is private at the moment. It's not public. And I have created a Moodle channel, but the plugin is still not working. It's empty channel. There is still a fair bit of code that needs to be written, the authentication part and the APIs part. It will need a few more weeks, I think. So I just wanted to give this this presentation so that people are aware that this is what's been going on. And this came out of the MoodleMoots last Melbourne Moot. So it's a very interesting idea proposed by Scott, I think, yeah. And he's very excited about this as well. And this is looking very interesting. I think that's all. I do not have any demo yet to show because it's not completed yet. So over to you, David.
Excellent. I mean, no need for actual demonstration at this stage of the development. It's great to see that somebody actually started with this integration. It was requested for some time, and I think IFT provides quite a huge range of possibility to integrate with other systems and everywhere. So it will be great to see this thing being developed and maintained for the future, so that other sites all around the world can start integrating their sites with other portals. Well done, Ankit, and thanks a lot for your work on this. Let's see who's next on the schedule. Let's try switching back to Perth to see if the meeting room is ready.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Sound good. Yeah. Just muted. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Can I ask Adrian first to present his project output from last week?
Yes. Hello. My project was to create a more user-friendly interface for the lesson module. So I created a prototype, and I should be able to demonstrate it. Where is it? Okay. So initially, this was just to show the flow of how a lesson would be displayed. So you got a better idea as to how the lesson actually looked. But I went on from there and created something that allowed you to actually generate a lesson. So we have our first page, which is our introduction page, I guess, and from here I can add more content to the page. So
Is it accessible?
yeah, it's not accessible at the moment, but yeah, it's just basically to show you what's possible. So I'll add a true and false, and then let's see, I add another multiple choice. All right, but I might unlink this one and link it from here instead. So now you can see that after the content, we'll have a button, one that goes to this question here, and another one that goes to the multiple choice. And basically, yeah, you can just keep on dragging your items onto the screen, and then you can link them how you want them. Get rid of that one. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this is a very simple example. If we have a look at the condensed view, it gives you the original view as to how this looks. As you can see, it's sort of giving a default for a lot of values as it's coming through, as you can see here for the different titles. I've got a slightly more exotic one. Whoops. I've got one that's actually got a cluster in it. Oh, actually, this is what Ruby looks like for people that are interested in what Jetta was talking about. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this has a cluster here. Cluster is basically a combination of questions. So the student comes here to the introduction, and then they go into the cluster, which randomly picks one of these two questions. And then after it's got through all the questions in the cluster, it'll go to the content that comes out here. And then, yeah, once again, I can add more stuff if I want to. Or I'll get rid of it. So yeah, it's effectively a sort of more user-friendly, well, I think it's more user-friendly way for creating a lesson.
Cool.
Wow, that's definitely much more than user-friendly, user interface to administer a lesson. It's great. It's great to see this development. It's been asked for ages. Did I get it right that this new UI can be used for editing existing lessons as well?
Yes. Yeah. If you have an existing lesson and you just click on the JavaScript thing, it will pop up all of those windows on the page. Maybe not well presented, but you'll have to drag them where you want them. But yeah.
Great, definitely great. Will this be available as a patch for lesson in some future Moodle version? Right.
Well, it's only a prototype, sort of a proof of concept.
Good.
Yeah.
Let's go through at least 12 reviews first.
Yeah, excellent. I'm pretty sure many people will love it and well done on this. Great. Can I ask Semi now for presenting his work on events graphic reports?
All right. Thanks, David. So I've been working in the last project 2 weeks. Which is my plugin event graphics report. Basically,
Are you sharing?
oh, sorry.
That's in Firefox. Command tab.
Command, yeah.
Yeah, you need to share.
So basically, what my plugin does is read the locked tables and generate graphics using Google Charts. And I've been working on that on the last 2 weeks. Let me show you. So when the user go to site administration and choose reports and event graphic report, it displays the activity of each course, which course has more uses or less uses. So if the user select here the course 1, it generates the charts for that course, which user is more active on that course. So the percentage of of each course, each student or user. What's the most trigger events like in that for that course? So you can see like Google Charts give like this really nice reports dynamic, and by month, each month the usage of each user. So for that course, you see like admin has more work, more events for the admin, and I had recently logged in with those users, so you have more events for these users. So it's something that I really like to do, like graphic reports, and I've created a plugin for that. That's in my GitHub. And it's also on the plugin, waiting for a review on the plugins database too. So yeah, in the last project week, I was like just a code, nest code, just to as proof of concept. And now I did like a plugin and everything. So would be nice to get some feedback from the community of more ideas, which graphic is more interesting. And my next goals are to add more filters here, and the user report. If you choose, for example, a user, displays reports relevant for that user. So it's something that I want to keep working on that and make like a huge plugin with a lot of graphics. And it's good to show how the data of the new events are better and better structured and better detailed. So, and this is my project. So.
Excellent. You actually answered my question whether there will be some possibility to filter the events on the page and more triggering of this report. And it's nice to see that you are planning to add them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great. Again, I think it's these last two demonstrations actually show us how a visualization of information is essential in Moodle, like all this lesson plan and these reports and everything. They give you a direct insight into how things are evolving, whether there is some student having troubles maybe, and these things. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Simone. Let's see at the last one, as I can see. Let's ask Marina for a short report on tag API changes in Moodle 3.
So I thought there were more people. Hello. This mouse is so weird. Sorry. The idea came from discussions with Damien and David Modrak, yourself, about why don't we use tag API for competencies or for plugins directory, and both Damien and David were saying pretty much the same. I don't want these tags to be together with user interests and blog posts. It's completely it's completely different. Sorry, can do two at the same time. Type and speak. Completely different areas of tagging, and I recently implemented tags in one of applied existing tag API to one of my projects, and I also realized that it's a bit inflexible. Like I cannot use tag cloud block for just one course, just the tags that are used in one course, and had to re-implement pretty much this block. So this is my idea that I'm trying to implement now and hopefully push in the core if it goes through all the 20 reviews.
It's 26 now.
26. Oh, all right. Things change. So the first thing is that each component that wants to use tags has to define that it uses tags and announce it, and then through this centralized interface, every component can be enabled or disabled. So you don't have to, if you want to use tags in one area, you don't have to use it in everywhere else like it is now, because there's only one site-wide settings use tags. Also, administrator of the site can create as many tag collections as they want, and each tag collection would have different set of words, and they can actually intersect, so that can be the same words in different collections. So this changes the index on the tag table. So it does change the API, unfortunately, quite significantly. I tried to keep all the existing functions working, but it will need changes from the plugins that already use Tag API. And then for each tagged area, you can select the tag collection that you want to use. And if you go, this is the old managed tags interface. I really hope I will have time to change it, because it's so inconvenient. In order to make the tag official, right, they're all official, but if I wanted to make it default, I have to click default, select, go here, say change tag type, and then click OK. So it's it really should be one click. All right, now I'm doing all of this back because I want them official. And this is an example. If another thing is that on this is tag managing interface, which is accessible for admin and for the user. For the normal user, there is a search tags page, which now has a selector where to search for tags. So if you search for something, probably it will return tags from user interests and from courses, and or you can just limit to the courses, or you can just limit to the user interests. And now if I go to the side blocks, for example, at the moment, side blocks are set to use blog posts, set to use default collection. So if I add a new entry, I can see the tags from default collection. For example, I go here and change it to user interests. Don't know what's refreshed here. And now it shows official tags from another collection. And obviously the tag block has new parameter, which collection to show. I won't demonstrate it now, it's quite straightforward. And there are lots of other things that I really want to do. For example, this block tags, it could have, this page doesn't have control to turn the editing on. Okay, in order to turn editing on, I have to go back to the site home. Sorry. So now there is a new control here that allows to choose the tag collection. Another thing I want to introduce is that on this page, when you go to the tag page, it only shows you users or courses, doesn't show anything else. And if every component that was registering tag would also register callback, then this page could display much more information, and it could also limit to the current context, current course, or current module, or whatever you need. So at the moment, for example, questions and wiki pages can be tagged, but you cannot search wiki pages or questions by the tag, because they are not displayed on this page. So this tagging is sort of useless. Right, that's about it. There is an issue tracker about it. I'll post it in dev chat a little later. If anybody has any comments, please leave them there and follow it.
Excellent, thanks, Marina. I think it's clear that this is a great improvement to text API that needs some polishing anyway. But this will actually make tagging inbuilt core feature much more usable in many other areas, and I think many of us actually already have some ideas how and where it could be used in the future if this possibility to have distinct like collections or clouds of text to manage. There are a couple of comments in the chat, like these things that guys are seeing places where this can be used. Also in the future, as there was a good comment, admins should actually be quite careful about using a lot of these collections, because tags are nice in the way that they are connecting places that normally would be quite far from each other. So there will be probably some good balance of how to do these collections from the administration point of view. But yeah, thank you very much. It's great to see this happening. Is there anybody else in the perf who we forgot about? Or is it everything from the project weeks we wanted to present? I guess there is nothing left in the agenda.
No, I think that's it for us.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. In that case, I would like to ask Juan for a nice and welcoming announcement of Moodle mobile updates. So Juan, over to you.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about new version of Moodle Mobile. That's going to be Moodle Mobile 2. We usually, we use the one for the new version of Moodle Mobile, and since this is a major change, we changed to the name to be Moodle Mobile 2 for marketing, or for a good marketing name. So I'm going to talk about new features, improvements, new functionalities, and also about the roadmap of the application. I'm sharing in my screen the new version of the application, as you can see. And the first thing you're going to notice is that it has a new interface, a very nice interface, completely renewed. We are using a framework that is called Ionic framework that uses internally Angular JS, and it's very, very nice because it's focused on Moodle, on mobile hybrid applications using web technologies. So it's really focused to make HTML5 applications to look like being native applications. First thing you notice is the improved user interface. There are also some improvements like pull to refresh. Well, you notice that the color change here. This is because we support remote style customizations. You can put a CSS file in your Moodle installations for styling the application. It was already supported in the previous application. We implemented nice features like pull down to refresh, so you can pull to refresh almost all the screens. For example, like the course contents screen. We add small new features like course filtering, so you can type and you can filter if you have a long list of courses. We add another interesting features like infinite scroll. I'm not sure if I have course with a lot of users. Let me change sites. Well, I cannot find a course. Anyway, general improvements are that previously the app storage was limited to 5 megabytes because we were using the local storage, and now we support using a database, an HTML5 database. Mostly it's going to be indexed DB, and other case we will use web SQL when IndexedDB is not available. And another improvement is that we support watching the calendar events even when you are offline. We display the complete user profile information for participants in a course, so you can see all the details of the user, and you can see also here all the actions you can perform for a user. I'm reviewing the list. Let me find. We add new interesting functionalities like activity completion support. The activity completion support status is now displayed in courses, where if the course has enabled this feature. It's going to be cool because this is very used in the MOOC. That is going to, you know that the next Moodle MOOC is in August, if I remember well. I think that the 4th or no, the 9th of August. And the new application is going to support all the functionalities that were missing in the previous MOOC, in the previous version. So we add support for activity completion. We add support for the book module. That is going to be very interesting because you can now browse a book via the application. Sorry. There is a navigation button that I cannot click. Well, you can browse the book. And we also add support for choices. I cannot show them of choices because they are not integrated yet. We are going to integrate it today. We also support the chat activity. Let me show a demo of the chat activity. I have in another window another chat user. Well, demo effect is not working right now. Sorry, I think
doesn't matter. It's great anyway.
But you can imagine that you're going to see here the message, and you can see the list of connected users. We are going to support the beep and the talk functionality like it was in previous like it was in the web version. And new plugins supported also are the notes. You can you can see the course notes or personal notes. So, well, I'm testing with a student. Let me switch to teacher. So you can see all the course notes, and also if you go to the user profile, you can add notes that was in the previous version. So you can easily check the course or personal notes for your users. Well, in this case, I only have course notes. We also add support to the IMCCP module, so you can play IMCCP packages. It was very easy to do because the API was almost done. And we did general improvements in the application, as you can see, almost in the user interface, that is faster and smoother. Let me show you. We simplified the web the settings interface, so you have less settings and you have only settings that make sense. Here, for example, you can force the synchronization of a remote site, so you can invalidate the cache, so you will retrieve fresh new information anytime. We also improve my fields displayed and support and how you can add new files in the application. And we did also a beautiful message interface for chatting, like WhatsApp. In this case, I have my contact list empty, but I can switch to another site. Well, here we have messages disabled, so maybe so you can see here my message courses. For example, here I'm going to show you the infinite scroll. You see that we have a lot of users, so if you go down, you will see that new users are loaded. And that's it. We have also an improved split view. If I make the screen, I think that you see in case, for example,
it looks really great. All these improvements look really great one. Well done to all your team on that. Can I have just 2 short questions on you?
Yes, of course.
So the app is already released. Did I get it right? Guys can start testing it. What platforms is it available for?
Well, we are going to support initially iOS and Android, and we are going to evaluate supporting Firefox OS because it's it's going to be simple with a new framework support this kind of platforms.
Okay, great.
Well, I forgot to mention that we are going to release the new version of Moodle Mobile end of this week. So this Friday should be available for download. So everyone, so people that are going to take the MOOC is going to be able to use the new application.
It's great news. Great news. Thank you very much, Juan. There were a couple of comments and plus ones for all these improvements. I would like to pass the microphone to Martin in Phonetic, who would have some comments on mobile app as well.
Yeah, thanks, David. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that the mobile app is a really good chance to rethink Moodle's interface. It's simple. You can see how a lot of things are being simplified and decluttered, and I hope this development will find its way into our web version as well, as much as we can, that the web version operates more like this over time. And the second thing I wanted to say was, recently I was at the Mountain Moot in Montana last week, and there I was with Aaron Page, who's on the accessibility group. In fact, quite a lot of the Moodle accessibility group were there, and we had a meeting. But I sat down with Aaron Page, who is something like 99% blind, and I gave him a copy of this mobile app on an iPad to have a play with it. And it was surprising how much he could navigate straight away. It's already, has a lot of accessibility about it, and it was incredible to watch a completely blind guy using this app. But he also gave us a whole lot of feedback for things we can improve to improve the accessibility of it. And so I've passed it on to Juan and the mobile team there, and we're going to work on that. But I actually think the mobile app offers a really accessible option for people who need it, so that's quite exciting.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the info, and definitely agree. This version and also all the planned features are very nice. Juan, there was a question: is this new version a replacement for the existing app, or do one need to download a new one?
It's a replacement of the existing application. So people is going to see like a normal update of the application, and we are going to migrate some of the existing data. We are going to migrate the site list. So with the new app, the new application, the user will see their previous Moodle sites. We are not going to be able to migrate all the information, but most of the information is cache information that can be easily replaced. So it's something that is not going to be a problem for the 99% of the users.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. There is a question in the chat. Did you do the same iPad demo on the web version? From Dan.
Sorry, can you repeat? I didn't hear.
Did you do the same iPad demo on the web version?
The same? Sorry, I don't understand the question.
Sorry, actually, I didn't get it right. It's actually a question for Martin, so I'm passing over to Martin to reply.
Well, when I got Aaron to do the test, it was on an actual iPad. So he was using the actual iPad app, like a prototype, the current prototype. But you have all of this page is all of the app is HTML and JavaScript. So very similar things apply in terms of using headings appropriately, because when you're using an iPad in accessibility mode, you swipe the screen up and down and it flips through headings, and so heading levels become important because blind people often use headings as a way to navigate around pages, and it's the same with the web version. We really need to still clean up quite a lot of things to make it even better, and accessibility in forums will be one of our focuses coming up in the next couple of months as well. Same sort of thing.
Yep. Thanks for that, Brian.
The final comment is that we are aware of the accessibility problems that Martin mentioned. So for version 2.1, we are going to focus to fix those problems. We will try to make some improvements before the release this Friday, but we are a little bit late now. But we will try as soon as possible to improve the accessibility of the application.
Great. It seems that the actual question was that whether the standard Moodle web interface was tested with iPad as well on this test, and that didn't happen. It was this app used. Excellent. Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you very much, Martin, for these comments. There is now Andrew Nichols waiting for us to give us a short summary of recent or some ideas of how what used to be called as anonymous forum could be implemented in Moodle. So Andrew, over to you.
So yeah, I've been thinking about this for probably 18 months. When we first started looking at some of the new forum functionality about 18 months ago, this is one of the things that we looked at. It was called Anonymous Forums. It's discussed in MDL 1071, which is probably one of the voted for MDL issues at the moment with 111 votes. It's been going for 11 years. And I've been trying to break it down into some more usable chunks and work out how we can actually implement this. As I say, it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and somebody at the Moots 2 weeks ago now made the comment about it and said this was one of their most requested features, so I thought about how we could do it. To that aim, this document, this MDL issue is really quite long, so I've written a quick document which I've linked on the meeting minute notes, looking at the different use cases that people have raised and some of the other ones that I've come across. Looking at some of the other the options around it, some of the issues and the caveats, and how it could work. One of the things I've done is to rename it at the moment to user disguises. The reason behind that is that Moodle can never really be anonymous. There's always some form of logging. Even if we disable all of the logging in Moodle, there's still the gradebook, and if you disable that, there's still Apache logs, and there's too many things which are potentially outside our control that we can't really say this is anonymous. So some of the feedback I got during the developer Hackfest of the Moot was that, can we rename it? It's not really anonymous. So I looked at thought of a few options, and the one I've gone for so far is user disguises. And that's one of the caveats I've discussed in my document, is how this can never really be anonymous. So what do we do about that? And so I've also tried to look at the kind of different options that we can put in there. Somewhere in here I've got them. There we go. So whether we want to do things like reveal the identity of the user at now or at a later date, whether we should log the user actions at all, whether we should log them anonymously rather, whether we should allow use of the gradebook and display the real identity of the user alongside this. So these comments are new, so I haven't read those yet. But also, when I was looking at the different use cases, I came across quite a few different options people are looking at doing. Some people want this for, I'll go up to the use cases quickly. Some people want this for role-playing, for example, so they can take on different identities and different personas. So with those kinds of use cases, it doesn't really matter if you hide the user's real identity. Other people want to be able to reduce inhibition in interactions, particularly people looking at of different cultures. Some of the comments in the MDL issue, for example, are saying people of certain cultures are too afraid or socially inhibited to ask questions, and that's similar to asking questions without fear of embarrassment. That was another common one. And with those ones, you don't really want people to know who's asking the questions, and sometimes you want to disguise the discussion entirely so that the teachers don't know who's talking. So I've tried to look at the different options and kind of cover all of those, whether you reveal the identity, log those actions, display, and whether you display the real identity alongside the fake identity. And when I was kind of doing this, one of the things I kind of thought about was how we could implement this within the forum, and I've thought that maybe we shouldn't just limit it to the forum. So I've thought about how we can do this across Moodle potentially. So the change I was looking at doing was implementing this at the context level, similar to how we're doing with the context read-only. So again, this will have the same caveats as the context changes in there. When this gets implemented, that we will probably have to add a new field in the context table, which points to an instance of the user disguise. But that will mean that any module or block can theoretically support this feature. They don't have to, and it will be something which they have to say, I support this, because it will also require some additional code changes, because that context level will need to be passed into places like the full name and to get the user profile and the user profile image. So we'll need to modify those different locations to say that they support it. But by doing it at the context level, we can provide course level course level disguises. So you might have a course which has several forums and maybe a wiki or some other actions in there, which you always appear as your fake user in there. The other thing I thought about when doing this was, again, with the different use cases, people want different kinds. At the moment, there's a couple of people who are doing this. There's in forums. One of them is Forum NG, which is the Open Universities forum. That's, from what I recall, and last time I looked, you could only choose the name anonymous. You could only post anonymously as a moderator. So that didn't give the option for students to post anonymously, which covers none of the use cases which I really came across. The other one is HSU forum, or advanced forums, and that only allows people to post with the name anonymous. It doesn't actually let you have a different name for each user. So you kind of lose the ability to see who is replying to whom. So I've kind of looked at how we can do that by having a new clubbable system for disguises. So you can choose. We might, for example, provide a couple of basic ones with Moodle and allow them to be obviously within the plugins database. So having a fixed string like anonymous would cover all of those people using the advanced forums at the moment. But we could also have a user chosen one. So the first time somebody comes into the forum, they have to choose their preferred pseudonym. Also, it could be tutor assigned or tutor randomly allocated from a predefined list. So essentially that's where I'm up to, and I'm just trying to write the specification for this and implement a proof of concept as to how this could work. But I just wanted to kind of point people at this document for any comments or feedback or additional use cases I haven't yet considered. And I apologise to Teresa because I haven't yet seen those comments until just a few minutes ago. But that's where I'm up to at the moment.
Excellent, thank you, Andrew. I can imagine this is going to be quite a huge project with a lot of impact to other areas. But it will. I think, as I quickly seen, that a lot of these use cases are really valid from pedagogical point of view. So it will be great to have many of these, at least some of these, supported. I can't see any more questions related to this, so thank you very much. It's great to see this happening, and the links are there. So if you are willing to, if you would like to join any of these great developments happening right now and in the future, you are very warmly welcome. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching us today. I think that's all we wanted to present. You are very welcome to join us in 3 months from now with demonstrations of your work, contributions, or just sharing ideas of what could be done in Moodle development. That's all from us today. Thank you very much again for watching, and see you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.